Sometimes the best way to keep going is just to simply go back to the beginning and remind yourself why it was you started in the first place. Hello there, it's me, Steve Mellor, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high-performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. 7 years ago, I pressed record on this podcast for the very first time. And if I'm being honest, I can barely remember why. I remember my microphone, it was cheap. I remember how my voice sometimes felt too close, then it felt too far away. I remember worrying if anyone would listen, if anyone would care. But the deeper reason I started, the why behind it all, that can sometimes be kind of fuzzy. Yet here I am, 7 years later, still talking, still sharing stories, still asking questions. Why? Well, because there's something dangerous that happens along any meaningful journey. We forget why we started. I want to tell you about someone I once coached. His name was Timmy. Timmy was a swimmer. He was a talented one, but he started to lose his way when I started to coach him. He'd been swimming since he was very, very young. And there was a time when nothing lit him up more than the feel of water rushing past his ears, the rhythm of his stroke, the simplicity of trying to go a little bit faster every single day. But as Timmy grew older, the stakes grew higher. Times had to drop. Competitions, they mattered that little bit more. Suddenly scholarships were on the line. We were competing in college against the best of the best. And the Olympic trials that seemed so appealing at one point of his career suddenly became this monumental mountain that seemed too difficult to climb. One day, after a brutal practice, Timmy pulled me to one side. His eyes were red from the chlorine, but maybe there was something else at play too. He said, "Coach, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm not as good as everyone else. What's the point in going for trials if I'm just going to fall short again?" And I remember asking him a question in that moment. "Timmy, why did you start swimming in the first place?" You can tell from a response in that moment that that wasn't a question he was expecting. He blinked, he looked away, and finally he found the words just to simply say that I started because it was fun, because it made me feel free. It made me smile. Every day I wanted to see if I could just get that little better than I was the day before. The simplest of questions to evoke the simplest of memories. And in that moment, something suddenly shifted. All the weight of expectation, it didn't vanish, but that young boy who fell in love with the sport came back to life inside of Timmy. He remembered his why. And here's the part that I want you to know. Timmy kept going. He showed up at the pool day after day, not just chasing times, but reconnecting with the joy that first brought him to the water, the challenges that came with simply getting a little better every single day. And eventually, Timmy went and punched his ticket to the Olympic trials. All because he was able to remember why it was he started. So let me ask you, when you look at your journey currently, do you remember why you started? Not why you keep going, not why you start that list of tasks that you have on your desk right now, not why you show it for other people, but why you began in the first place. The raw reason, the spark that lit up everything inside of you. Was it curiosity? Was it the lure of freedom? Was it a love? Was there some grief at play? Was it possibilities? Were you seeking revenge? Who knows? But when was the last time you checked in with that version of you? The one at the starting line. Because the longer we keep going, the more the journey piles weight upon our shoulders. We get buried under expectations, routines, comparisons, fatigue, and we start asking, is this still worth it? Does anyone even care? Why should I even keep going? And hey, if you've been listening to this podcast now for a while, back when it was called Career Competitor to where we are now today as the Growth Ready Podcast, you've heard this come up time and time and time again from high performers. Some of the examples that we've heard over the 7 years of this podcast include having Olympic athletes, Super Bowl champions on this show who acknowledge that all the medals, all the trophies, none of those things would have mattered had they not been able to embody the reasons for why they started, the love of what it was they fell in love with about the sport, and the camaraderie that came with the teammates that they got to do it with. Then on the other side, we've heard from countless CEOs who said the reason they began leading and building companies in the first place was to solve what others were unable to be in positions of influence that others wish they could be. Yet they had to learn lessons the hard way of what happens when their focus shifts entirely towards the demands of investors and quarterly reports. We've even had artists and innovators who began their journey truly out of a desire to create, to fulfill a passion. And yet they've considered walking away simply because they've received criticism or because ideas weren't able to initially get off the ground. This is the quiet crisis behind many great achievements. People forget why they started. My hope is that with this episode that celebrates and honors the 7 years of producing and growing this podcast is to help you reconnect with your why. I want to offer you some questions today. Questions that I've been asking myself, especially in the moments I thought, and trust me, there was a few times that I thought of quitting this podcast. One question is that if you were to strip away the goals, the metrics, the potential audience, would you still want to do the thing that you're doing? If the world stopped applauding, would it still feel worth it? What was it you were craving when you first began? Are you still honoring that craving? Or have you become a stranger to what that initial craving was? When I ask myself these questions, I go back to the quiet reason I started this show. Turns out I hadn't forgot it. Turns out that it wasn't fuzzy at all. It took me preparing to record this very episode just to simply remind myself of just how clear I am about why I started and why I'm excited to continue going. I love conversations. I love digging deeper, far beyond the small talk. I recently said at a speaking engagement that when people ask Steve to go for coffee, they better buckle up because they know nothing about that coffee will remain at the surface. We'll go deep and we'll get into the heart of why it is we decided to make this time and what it is we want to get out of this time. Whether it be the stories that I've got to have on this podcast or stories outside of it, the fact is people's stories and people's journeys have saved me on my own journey. Because I believe in the power of a great question. I believe the importance of listening attentively to pull out even greater questions off the back of an initial question. The conversations that I am privileged to having on this show have shaped who I get to show up as today. I know for a fact that there's people that have listened to this show over the 7 years that feel the same way. And I'm so proud to be able to say that. And whether it's 5 people today, 50 people tomorrow, or 500 people a year from now, when I look at the stats, sure, they mean something. But my ability to have honored why it was I started in the first place over now 7 years and 270 plus episodes, that is without a doubt the thing I am most proud of. So, in closing, here's my hope for you. Before you decide whatever you're doing right now is too hard, or that things have gone too far, or that Maybe you haven't committed yet, and life is now in a point where things are too late to do anything about it. Pause. Think. Either why did I start, or why might I start? Because somewhere inside of you, the person that took the first step, or that has taken steps, first steps before in their life, that person is still very much there. They are inside of you. You just need to go ahead and remind them that they are, in fact, still there. In my opinion, sometimes the best way to keep going is just to simply go back to the beginning and remind yourself why it was you started in the first place. So I'll leave you with this final question. What would your life look like if you lived every day in honor of why you started? Folks, thank you so much for listening to this episode, the 270 plus episodes that have come before it, the 7 years of interviews, of content, of insights that I've been fortunate enough to provide through this platform. I know there will be many more years to come because my appetite for great conversations is not going to be going away anytime soon. And so my hope is that you continue to tune in, that you continue to find reasons to subscribe, to share the show. And as always, I appreciate you for not only listening, but for continuing to pursue your best version of you. In the meantime, best of luck with anything and everything that you've got going on in your world. And I look forward to doing this again with you for another 7 years. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to Growth Ready. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are Growth Ready, and you will be too.